All right, I hadn't done a. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I got. Yep, volume. I think it's volume. Yeah, I think it's volume. Test, test, test. Check one. Okay. Yeah, I see the light. Okay, it must be some volume. Other than that, I hadn't done live video in a while, so I decided to go live. So I guess when people get the notification that I'm live, they'll uh, they'll start writing. But anyhow, I'm just gonna start chatting. For those that know that I made the video maybe a week or 2 weeks ago on how I would create and record a song. First off, I want to start saying about the video. Let me turn my phone down because sometimes people will call me or chat and get on the in the Okay, so um, depends on if people see this or not. So I want to kind of do a live chat to explain what I was doing in that video. If you got a chance to watch it, now some people might pop on here and didn't see that video. If you hadn't saw the video that I made to about basically how I record and how I would create and record a song, that's basically the video was basically designed the purposes of how I would come up with the song and then how I would recreate it. It wasn't really a song. It wasn't an actual song that I thought of, just something I did just to show the process. And when I watched the video, I probably what I should have done was kind of talk. I wish I had talked more of what I was doing in the video. So when I do a video up here, when I do a video, I'm going to actually talk through the process. I got a couple of Panasonic GH type cameras. I normally use my Nikon Coolpix to record my videos, but I'm gonna try out these Panasonics simply because of all the reviews I've seen when people making short films and videos with Panasonic G8 series. So I'm gonna try those out and see how those work out. Also, I did some I did some I got some new video editing software, and it's not like the regular video editing software that I'm used to. But if anyone on here they're familiar with DaVinci Resolve, or if you're familiar with Hit Film, let me know. I'm gonna watch some tutorials on those, because one thing I am not great at is video recording. I'm good at recording music, but I'm not the video stuff. I need to get better with the video stuff. So I'm trying to figure out what cameras and everything else. I want to really get good at video, because I think that's where a lot of YouTube videos pop, and that's why their videos, the way their videos look, and I need to get on board with that. Some people are using DSLR, so I think there's some software for that. So right now I'm just randomly chatting right now until some people pop up on here. It is now 7:53. I started about 3 minutes ago, and I need to know. Oh, I see some people are live. Okay, people are tuning in. I guess no one's writing in the chat. I'm usually looking for the chat for people to say hello, but I see 5 views or 2. So, Lisa, well, thanks for watching. If you're here, thanks for watching and tuning in. The video, what I want to do this live chat about is for people to ask me questions about if they saw the video I made on how I would record and create choose a song. For the people to interact on that in case they have questions. So I'm going to do one up here. and I'm going to use a lot more outboard gear and a lot more gear, especially the outboard gear that you see behind me, in conjunction with definitely going to use one of the DAWs, whether it's either Cakewalk or it's going to be Harrison Bix Bus or Reaper or one of those DAW softwares I'm going to use. Also, let me know if the volume for this microphone is good, because I see that the line, but it doesn't tell me if the volume is good or if you can hear me well enough or not. So if I need to fix it or, whatever, let me know. So, like I said, I'm just rambling until I start seeing questions. If people got questions, if you saw the video on how I would record and create a video, how I would create and record a song, let me know too in the chat, so I can explain if you got questions. Some people might not have any questions. Some people might. So I really want to talk about that. Once again, I'm going to also talk about how I'm going to talk to, how I'm going to do it up here. So, yeah. Other than that, like I said, I see people are tuned in, but I'm not seeing who's tuned in. So, but anyhow, thanks for watching. Like I said, I'm just rambling till I get some questions. This is kind of like your chance to ask me questions in these live streams. So other than that, so I guess I'm not seeing any questions or nothing in the chat coming up. So what I'm gonna do right now is, if you saw that video, how I would record it, how I would create and record a song, I'm gonna kind of talk the process. Normally, in a recording studio environment, if you're wondering why a lot of commercial studios have a console, one of the benefits to having a console is zero latency monitoring over just going directly from your resource to the interface into the DAW. The console gives you the ability to hear what's going on live right there at the moment. For the most part, whenever a studio multi-tracks to record into their interface to go into the DAW, they're not so much worried about a little bit of the delay, or what we call latency. They're not really worried about that, because they can see the signal processing in the DAW. What they are concerned about is monitoring what's being recorded. So some DAWs you can only hear the after effect of what's being recorded. In other words, you can kind of monitor, you can set up your channels, and then you can hit the monitor to hear the signal feed, but it might be a little bit of delay. And a little bit of delay, that latency is what could be aggravating, because you're kind of like, you can hear, like, for example, the drummer hits the snare, clack, clack. You hear a little bit, that little, he clack, clack on the, and then you hear it later in the DAW. You won't get that with a console. So, because all the outputs that are coming from the live room or whatever, you're going to hear instantaneous through the console. Then that generates into the DAW. So that's the reason being. And that's the same thing for recording. And now mixing is a little different. Usually when you do the playback on your DAW and it comes out of your interface into your mixing console, that's going to be pretty instant coming from your interface to your mixer if you got one. So the recording portion is the aggravating portion on recording, is the latency, because you're trying to monitor live, you're trying to real-time monitor. So that's the reason why a lot of studios will have that console. Like me, I have consoles. I prefer to work that way. Not everyone, it doesn't have to. You don't necessarily, if you got a smaller setup and you're doing 1 or 2 channels at a time, that's not so much of a big deal. So that's not much of a big deal. But if you're trying to multi-track, I also did that video to let people, it's always, you always hear about the quality of Behringer. For me, I don't necessarily think that everything that Behringer makes is great, but I also don't think that a lot of stuff that Behringer makes is bad. There are certain things that Behringer makes that are pretty good, like that analog console that I got, the Behringer MX8000. It does have a few flaws, or I'm gonna say a few flaws. It does have a few setbacks, like, for example, not being able to have phantom power per channel, or or basically to have a preamp. Basically, phantom power is more than one thing, or having more controls on filtering and stuff like that. But overall, the board is actually not a bad sounding board, because when Behringer, before they moved their stuff to China to be made, Behringer was making their stuff in Germany. And that console was actually built in Germany. So that's the reason why it's a better sounding console than a lot of stuff they did when they was doing stuff in the 90s. Even though there's the controversy about Behringer getting sued and all that, I'm not here to defend Behringer. Okay, Man Network, just saw you live. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, like I said, I got to do a better job of announcing that I'm going to go live. But I'm going to definitely start doing live a lot more. I want to do it on Sundays. I really want to do it on Sundays. Simply because I think a lot more people are off on Sundays. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for people to give me the thumbs up. It all helps. It all helps my channel. But I want to go back. Like I said, I want to talk about what I did in that recording video in case people have questions. I was using some new software, and at the end of the video goes blank. The screen goes blank, but you can hear the track. I didn't like that. But like I said, I was using Sony's Movie Studio, and then of course I went to go and upload it, and I went and put in my password and all, it said it expired. And then when I went to go get, update my password and all that, the software changed. It's not even Sony's Music Studio anymore. It's owned by Magic. They got some new software, and I'm not, so I'm going to try Hit Film, because I want to get into short films as well. And I'm also going to get into video recording. And I need to really get better with Hit Film or Hit Film Pro or DaVinci Resolve. I have those two. I just need to get better at using that software and learning, because there's a lot of stuff in that, where you can do all kinds of editing and stuff for videos. And people know that have been watching my videos for a long time know I am not the greatest video. Like I said, I did get some new cameras, some Panasonic GH series. I watched the history of those cameras. A lot of people like to use the Sony or the Sony's A7, the A7 IIIs for video recording. Some people like to use the Canon. Some people are into the new Canon mirrorless, the R series mirrorless. Some people are using Nikons. I picked the Panasonic. I like the video quality of some of the video that I saw, the Panasonics. So I'm gonna try those. I've been using the Nikon Coolpix for my videos when I'm not using my camcorder, my webcam here. I've been using those, but I want to get my videos better. So I'm gonna take time to really learn to get better at my video editing. Also, I want to get better at that software for my videos as well. And what else? So that way I can make better videos, like tutorial videos for recording and all that. Because there are a lot of people that have YouTube channels that have really great looking videos. And I'm like, Mark, your video is like, my house looks so disorganized sometimes. So you probably wonder why I'm still around, because I'm just looking for questions. Maybe everyone that tuned in and know that I'm live probably didn't watch that video. I don't know if you watched that video, because I'm not seeing any chats or questions coming up in the chat room. So I don't know if people have any questions or they've even saw that video. It was probably over an hour and 15 minutes. But I want to see if people had questions on the recording process. Like I said, the object of that video was to show you how I would create it, basically. And one thing I could have re-recorded the video. I had a smudge or spot in the screen. But people know me, I'm kind of like, I always like this, I always like to make videos where there's imperfections, so videos don't look rehearsed. Some people, they will edit their videos and they'll re-edit. You can see where it's choppy. You can see where the video, you can tell where they purposely edited, and it's not a smooth edit from video when they do when they record something, and they go to the next video and they try to put it together where you can always tell it choppy where they edited two videos together where they try to redid the part. This is where movie professional cinematographies are really good at it, editing and make it where, we all know when you watch a movie that the director sometimes have to redo the take. They have to retake the scene 10, 12, 15, 25 times before they get but when they do those takes, they'll cut and paste a lot of those takes and puts those takes together where you can't even tell that it was 19 different takes or whatever. But the people that don't do that professionally don't know how to do that. And I don't like that look where I could be sitting there talking or something. All of a sudden it jump where I'm talking about, look like I added it on. It didn't look smooth. So that's why I'm always just, I'm just going to let it roll and go with it. So I noticed at the end of 15 minutes, I was watching. And I said, wait a minute, what is that in the middle of the lens? I don't know where that spot came from. So I scraped it. Of course, it still looked at smeared for a minute. And it kind of cleared up at the end of the video. But that's why that's there. So you know what? People let know that people know that's part of my personality. That's why I make these videos. I don't have pre-edited videos. I just go with it. So I haven't seen the last video. I've been recording a band for over a month. Just got today off. Oh yeah, I know how that is. It can be time consuming, because you especially recording a band. You got the mic placement, you got to get that right. You got you got your preamps, you got to get your compressors, you got everything, whatever the case, and then the band got to stop. You got to come back, record the guitar part, or they need to go back and record the bass or the drums, or they got to stop. And that's why they say a lot of times with bands, the fastest recording sessions is just how well the band is rehearsed and know the song. They can get through the song a lot faster and get done if they're so well rehearsed that they know the songs. But pro bands, like I would say, like your AC/DC, Metallica, it can even be R&B band like Earth, Wind & Fire or whatever. Bands like that have been playing with each other for years know each other extremely well that you can get the recording. So a band like Earth, Wind & Fire probably can record 8 songs in one day and be good to go. It makes the engineer's job and assistant engineer's job so much easier. A lot of I think a lot of times the people that have never worked in a recording studio, and of course this is not directed to Man Network because he knows, but there are some people on here that do not know. A lot of times in these recording sessions, there is a main engineer, usually at the console. The assistant engineers, they're the one patching in. The main engineer say, "Hey, patch in 1176. I need to patch in 1176, and we're going to set a fast attack, slow release, whatever, 4-1 or whatever." And the assistant engineer is the one that's going to go over and set up the compressor and plug it in, and so forth. The other assistant engineer is writing down levels. They might be writing down EQ settings as the engineer get it set on. Let's say the kick is on channel 1 right here, and he sets the kick at 100 hertz or whatever. I'm going to drop 250. I'm going to add 2K, and then I'm going to boost 7K. But I'm going to run I'm going to run a little narrow band or a wide band, whatever the case. That system is just writing that stuff down. What is my compressor? Okay, what we're using? What compressor we're using? Oh, we're using, this compressor. Okay, I'm running 8-1 or I'm running 5-1. I'm running a fast or medium attack or whatever. So they're writing all that down, making notes. Of course, there's across the channel, what's on each channel. They're making all these footnotes. Then there's another assistant engineer monitoring the DAW. They're monitoring inputs. They're monitoring levels. They're making sure everything's getting, appropriately and they getting everything appropriately done, setting up in the DAW. They're monitoring everything going on in the Pro Tools or whatever. Most of these commercial studios use Pro Tools, but some studios use Reaper, some use Harrison Mix Bus, some people use Logic Pro. It just but they're over there. They're sitting there monitoring the DAW. So you got at least 2 or 3 people, and then you always have that one, maybe a 4th person. It could be an intern, or an intern that they trust, or another engineer going out there and he's monitoring what's going on in the live room, mic placement. If the engineer doesn't go out there and adjust the mic, like Al Schmidt used to love and set his mics a certain way. A lot of times the engineer, okay, we're going to put ribbons on horns or whatever. We're going to put dynamic mics on trombones or whatever. We're going to use condenser mics overhead. We got room mics over here, room mics over there. Okay, and I have all these room mics. They're either using a preamp on the console or using external preamps. They're getting all that set. So you got a person doing that too. So this is the reason why our commercial studios cost, because you got a lot of people, but all that's what's going to make the recording come out good. He said, "Oh man, said this is an A-list band, and they wanted to make an album the old school way, try everything under the sun and decide what to keep." Okay, is that including 2-inch tape? Because the old school way means I'm going to use the console, outboard gear, and I'm going to run it to 2-inch tape. That's the old school way, but or we're doing everything with the console and outboard gear, but we're still going to record into the DAW. Some people they'll still record the tape and then bounce the outputs from the tape into Pro Tools because of the natural saturation sound of the tape. Some bands do it like that. I know 1979, the studio in 1979 does it that way. He said, we're doing tape and hard drive. Yep. So yeah, I kind of figured that. Something that old school way. Because a lot of times when for people that don't know, like I recorded on 2-inch tape. We had Ampex 2-inch tape, Studer 800 24-track tape machine in the 90s. One thing only thing that if it wasn't for the cutting up the tape and the editing of how you edit the tape, it is really, really, really hard to beat the sound of tape. This is why 80s and 90s music recorded in studios like this. We're talking all the top LA, New York, Houston studios. This is the reason why they sound so. If you go back, I'll always use, like, for example, Michael Jackson's Thriller album, or all the Madonna albums, or the bands from the 80s. But this is why their music sounded so good and warm. Had the drum, whatever, how it came through, the guitars, the bass, everything, how it came through is because of that tape. This is why they have so many tape emulation plugins. Tape saturation plugins now. They're trying to emulate that tape. I did a video. I wish I had gotten rid of it a long time ago of recording, and I was letting people hear even music done on these cassette tapes, because this is really a small, tiny version of an actual 2-inch tape machine. It's just a 2-track. It's a 2-track tape machine. That's what cassettes are. They're just micro 2-track tape machines. So the way it sounds, even if I play a CD, the CDs sound good because CDs with digital's clean, but tape has warmth to it. It's so hard to explain if you didn't grow up with tape. Okay, let me see. Okay, Martin. Okay, welcome. Thanks, Martin. Maurice Morrison. Love your content. Save a lot of money from your method of thinking. Oh, saved a lot of money from your. Oh, thanks. I appreciate. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that was the whole intent of the channel. It's kind of like when I start talking about. It's not that I would not discourage someone if you can get your hands on, let's say, an actual Teletronics LA2A, but you can get and you can afford it. I would say by all means buy it because it's the holy grail, right? Or an actual UA 1176 naturally, right? Or an actual pool tech. The issue is most people 90+% cannot afford, even if you got those three pieces of gear, a pool tech, an LA 1176, and a LA2A. Those three at top dollar will still run you 15 grand. My thing is, you know how much pieces of outboard gear or plugins or whatever you can buy for 15 grand? In some instances, you can do a complete studio, including acoustic treatment, for 15 grand. I'm just saying. And the thing is, even if you bought just those three, a lot of times you want more than those three, you are not going to hear a huge, dramatic difference between an LA2A and my Lin 76s in the rack here. An LA2 or my 1176 and UA 1176 and my Lin 76s, which my 1176s were, I believe, I forgot what I paid for them. I don't know, $399 or $499 a piece. Lindale Audio, Lintech 76s. You are not going to hear a difference. I mean, the difference will be so minute. But when when the differences are so minute, you're definitely not going to hear it in the mix. You're not. Okinawa, Japan says, I see you have an Alesis BRC controller behind you. Like it. Do you still record to ADAT? I bought 2 of those with ADAT units. Need to set them up if they even work. Worth it these days. Yeah, this is a lifesaver versus actually having to go over here. My ADATs are on the here down here. I also have a 24 disc hard disk recorder that it can control. But for functionality, it just beats having to go into the machine. Now, there's certain things you have to do on the machine. 90% of things that you need to do when it comes to recording the ADAT can be done on the BRC. So normally I would come over here. It's just easy for me to go, okay, I'm going to arm the tracks here, blah, 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 blah. I go over here. I can set up my locations. So when I go back and hit record, it goes back to that location. I can hit stop, play. I can go and program, and I can do all kinds. I can just go to the menu and do stuff right here. So it's kind of like the ultimate transport. It's like the same thing you would do in your transporter controls and everything, doing in your DAW. But as far as recording ADATs, I hadn't recorded ADATs in a long time because once again, even ADATs are limited in their ability to edit like you can in the DAW. It's just more easier or more feasible to record in a DAW of your choice. So that's why. But every now and then I'll pull out the ADATs because what I like about ADATs, and my ADATs are sitting up in here. Here's an ADAT tape. This is an ADAT tape sitting right here. What's nice about it is if I wanted to record the tape, in case my DAW goes, or let's say this PC, I record most of my DAWs on this PC I'm using right now goes out. But the thing is, I have a backup because I got a Mac. And so my antelope is sitting on the corner, but I also have my Mac, I have Motu, Mark of the Unicorn, under the desk. So I have another set of 8, plus I also have another interface with another PC over here. So I have backups. It's an older PC, but it still will get the job done if need be. But ADATs are like a last resort now. But if it came down to me recording ADATs, I can still record. And then with ADATs, I just would use pretty much all the outboard gear. I wouldn't use any plugins. I would use all the outboard gear, and it could be done that way because it was done that way before plugins. Before in the 90s, that's how you recorded the tape. ADATs are just a digital version of tape machines. So I started that way, so I would be able to work flawlessly had I needed to record some clients. So that's what's great about the ADATs. Let me see. I also just picked up a Mackie EX32, 32.8 this week. About to go old school. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you, for those that don't know old school way, if you want to know how it was done, just go back and listen to all the classic 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s records. It wasn't done, we're talking all the major artists. Every major artist that recorded in the 70s, 80s, 90s was not done in Pro Tools. It wasn't done with sound toys or soft isotope plugins or fan filter plugins. It was done on a console, someone's large format console, and with a lot of outboard gear and tape machines or ADATs or Tascam D888s or whatever. It was done that way. And you could hear thousands of records by thousands of artists done that way. So going old school that way, you're not going to go wrong as far as that sound quality. The only thing would be tedious old school way would be editing. You got to, in other words, Man Network was talking about recording a band. If you record a band, they have to be spot on the old school way, because if not, it's a lot of retakes. I think the only thing that you would hear, the biggest complaint that you would hear with commercial studios and artists is recall. Because a lot of times your system engineer a lot of times the recall, when you record the old school way, you got to remember the settings. Because if not, something's going to change sonically, the old school way. So you got to remember your settings before you go to the next track. So a lot of times there's a lot of writing, but I don't mind, because some people are not that patient for you to be writing down everything and trying to set up everything in case they need to recall and redo a track and recall it. And me, I think there's patience is a virtue. If you're patient doing the old school way, there's no rush to missing something, because I'll go back. If you watch the video that I did about how I create and record a song, that video I did, you can hear some imperfections in that song. But that was by design, because all I did was record it. All I did was think of something to play, record it, and then let you hear the final result. So there's some imperfections in it. Of course, if I was to do a real record, it would be because I would take my time to edit. I would go back and listen to the bass line. Oh, I need to redo the bass part on that. Let me go back and listen to keys. No, there's some missed notes there or whatever. There's some timing issues there. The drums, I need to fix the drums here. Blah, 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 blah. I would do more plugins, more EQs. But even in the end, it actually sounded pretty decent for what I did, even at the end of that video. So Man Network says, I would encourage 99.9% of home studios and new people to recording to stay away from blowing money on outboard gear. Get a microphone and master the software and your computer with people like me. I would definitely, I would agree, because buying hardware gear is a lot more expensive than buying plugins. When you start buying, if you start buying a ton of outboard gear, of course you can always sell it. And the way the economy is, selling gear is not as easy as all these people think it is. That's why I always find it funny when I was making up the conversation about Behringer gear, and some people say that if you buy Behringer gear, you can't sell it. You can only sell it for 10% of its value if you need to sell it. I'm like this. Yeah, it sucks to buy a $300 piece of Behringer gear, and then the only thing you can get in return if you have to sell is $50, right? But you know what sucks even more is, think about this for a second. When his last name is Aspen, but he used to own Groove Tubes, and he did a video demonstration. This is years before he died. He died in a tragic car accident. He owned Groove Tubes. He had this preamp called the Vipre. He also had one thing called the I think the other one, I forget what it was called, but one was called a Vipre. And it stands for variable impedance preamp. And it was basically you could do all these different settings, but the video on that, he took even just one of his microphones, the way the tone quality of that preamp is like the most, we always talk about the Neve 1073, or I love my Avalon. You can probably see my Avalon. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if you can see. I kind of moved you can see my Avalon right here. I got two 737s right here. I got some, these are Neve clones, but those are 73s. I also have some other preamps as well. But I also have a UA my LA610. I also have some Jomeek preamps. So I have some really nice preamps. But even Warren Hewitt, a producer like a pro, went to go visit. I'm drawing a blank on his first name. I know his last name was Aspen. And he was like that. And he saw that same preamp in 1979 studio in Nashville. And he was like, that preamp is so over-engineered, but the quality of it, and they got their hands on one. And that preamp, when I listen to the demo, that is probably one of the most, to me, that would be my holy grail preamp. It's kind of like when we talk about the 670 Fairchild compressor. It's the holy grail compressor, right? I've been wanting a Vipre for a long time. The thing is, Aspen Pittman, that's his name. Thanks. Aspen Pittman. And I knew his name was Aspen. I said his last name was Aspen, but his first name was Aspen. Rest in peace. Not only was his preamp, his compressors, his whole system, because he was so intelligent on how signal sounds. I wanted one of those, but the thing is, when we talk about reseller gear, I wasn't finding one less than $3,500 on a used market. And I'm like, do I spend $3,500 on one Vipre, or can I get a couple of Avalon 737s? I got the two Avalon 737s all together for under $2,700 for both of those. Even though I would have loved to own the Vipre. Man says that I own the Vipre, and it's awesome. I would definitely say I would definitely agree with you. From what I've heard, I don't own the Vipre. I want one. Eventually, I'm going to get one, and I think it's rings around every preamp that I got in my studio. He said my Vipre is loaned out. When I get it back, I'll loan it to. I would definitely love to try it out on vocals. I definitely want to try it on my T190, which is a 251. I just want to hear how it sounds. I got a singer. We're supposed to record some tracks. I would love to see how that sounds. That would be awesome. But I definitely want to own one though. Even though I appreciate the offer of being loaned, I really want to buy one. So I'm saving my pennies for a good deal on that Vipre. But not saying my other preamps aren't awesome. My other preamps are awesome. Even the preamps, I had one person ask me, how's the preamps in your Allen and Heath? I would say the preamps in this console are decent, but if you really want the ultimate sound from your preamps, you're going to want, I would even recommend those are called Altrons. They look like Neves, but those are Altrons. And what makes those so good is those are the same circuits that you would see in any Neve. They got input and output transformers. I'm going to tell you a preamp that I think is actually a very awesome preamp is my Warm Audio Tone Beast. It's right just above my Neve clones. It's on my hands over here. It's right here. My Tone Beast is right there. When what's his name from Treasure Isle, he's teamed up with produce like a pro. But he did a video on those tone beats, and you can change the transformer sound from nickel to iron. You can change the staging all throughout that. It dude has input and output transformers. I think that's Warm Audio's best preamp of every gear that Warm Audio's ever made. That tone beast is probably one of the best sounding pieces of gear they've ever made. I got one. I need to buy another one. And it's crazy that these are only going for about $5.99. That tone beast. If you don't get any other preamp, if you have no other, Joe Correll. That's it. Joe Correll. If you don't get any other preamp that's affordable and you want to, it's like I would say that preamp, that Warm Tone Beast is like an API. It's like an API 312 preamp on steroids. It's that good. I recorded a trumpet through that. The way that the quality of the trumpet sound came through that preamp, I was like, man, listen to my trumpet. I'm playing the trumpet. I would listen to the recording, and of course, naturally, I have a really good converter. I have an analog. So some people might say, man, yeah, with all the gear you got, of course, you're cheating. We don't have gear like some people might maybe watching my channel. Say, yeah, I don't have Avalon preamps or those preamps. So I don't have a UA610. I don't have an antelope interface, whatever the case. I don't have an Allen Heath console. You're cheating. Well, I would say, I don't know anyone else that's been in the recording business. I know Man Network's been. He know what the commercials. When you're been in around gear like that, yeah, you kind of know it. You know why we know why you buy the gear. We already know why we buy the gear we buy, because we know it. We know the results it's going to produce. Let me read some more stuff. What man said. The impedance selection is unreal and really changes how the mic. I cannot disagree. I watched that video. If you ever get a chance to watch Aspen Pittman Groove 2's video on that Vibe preamp, you'll see why. If you've never seen it. He says, I'm a Neve fanboy. I rarely use anything else. I use API here and there. And some people, when it comes to API versus Neve, I think Neve is warmer, but I think API is a little punchier. I think this is why API consoles are so preferred for rock bands. But I think Neve consoles are more picked for, if it's a jazz band or if you're going to use, R&B and a lot of even commercial, even pop, like a lot of Madonna's music, done on Neves. And then, but I think API was really influenced from MCI. MCI consoles are really punchy. MCI just didn't get the. MCI really didn't have the what's the word I'm looking for? MCI really didn't get enough of the promotional quality that they were producing, because when SSL was introduced, SSL was an all-around console that was it was the recording and mixing engineer's dream, because of all the dynamics on the channel and how you could, the full automation and how you could, so much that you can do with an SSL. The 4000 was like the epitome console, and then they went to the 6000, the 9000, and they had the duality and so forth. And the SSL became the go-to console for recording and mixing. This is why we start popping up in so many studios that MCI kind of this thing, not just with MCI, and I'm not even talking about like Soundcraft with the Ghost, and there was a lot of other consoles out there. Even though Audient, Helios, and so many other consoles out there. Harrison is definitely, it's probably one of the consoles. If you ever thought about, I would say Barbra Streisand, recordings of Michael Jackson. Everything that was going through Westlake with that Harrison console. unless you was really big in the European bands, then the Trident console was really that European sound from the 80s. I think Trident was big for the Stones and U2 and a lot of European bands. Man, so while I love gear and I own $1 million worth of gear, people can get perfect results with good mics and an interface. I'm going to do a video. Believe it or not, I'm going to do a video. I'm going to not only with all this gear, but I'm also going to do a video with just my little setup in my dining room. And if you know what you're doing, it'll come. That's the point of why I'm going to make this video. I want to show if you know what you're doing, because it's my Behringer Euphoria, and it has decent midas. Now, when this is the I'll say this. Even though they're Midas preamps in that interface, they're not necessarily the same Midas preamps that came in the Midas consoles used for live sound. They're kind of like a watered down, but that's how Behringer's able to get away with that, because if Behringer put the highest quality Midas preamps in those Behringer Euphorias, you wouldn't get those Behringer Euphorias for like $200, $300, $400. Now we're talking $1,200, $1,500, and Behringer's prices are always been associated with affordability, so they do water down some stuff. Now, I would sit there and say this with the Behringer Euphoria interface: if your recording sources, in other words, if you're going to record, like I usually use my Korg Cronus. So the sounds in that Korg Cronus synthesizer are top notch. I also use a real 5 or 6 string bass. Drums are, with the quality of the drums, especially drum samples and all the drum programs that I got in the software, are already going to sound good anyway. So with a good drum sound for the sounds I got, a good actual real bass, and the sounds coming in that come from that Korg Cronus, 90% of the sounds are already done. Vocally, I'm curious how vocals will come out using those Midas preamps in that Behringer. I might end up having to snatch one of my preamps for the vocals. Also, here's another trick, and man probably can vouch for this as well. Man at work can probably vouch for this too. One of the tricks, in case you don't know this, for coming out with really good sounding vocals is a tube microphone. A tube microphone can make the difference. So he may say, "Nah, do it with the same preamps." I'm going to see. I'll try it. I've done it before, but I'll try it, and I'm going to see how the vocals come out. Then I'm going to try it with an external preamp with my tube. But we'll see. So, man, I got it way off because it's going on 47 minutes, and it's a little after 8:30 my time. I would say this. Going back to when I was talking about the video that I did, I want to show people when I recorded that video of how I create and record a song, why I went to the console. But what I want to do is I want to do one more video that way before I come up here in the other video. I'm going to do more recording videos, but I'm actually going to do a video with the setup where it's just the controller. If you watch my studio tour video, you'll probably see what I'm talking about where I start my living room. I don't have very much gear other than that little setup. So we're going to see how that comes out. This is a pricey, it's kind of a little more expensive setup, but you know who has a really great setup that you can use that you don't need a console or outboard gear? And that is the Antelope Zen Studio setup. They have really good system, but like I said, I know it's good because I have the Antelope interface, the Orion 32 Plus. So I know about Antelope products. Some people, we should talk about interfaces. I need to talk about interfaces more. He said, oh, let's see, man, tube mics are forgiving. They distort it in a pleasant way and fix a lot of vocal problems. For me, I just like the way tube mics, the warmth of the vocals come from a tube mic versus some people like a FET mic. Some people even like a ribbon. Oh, there's a lighting because of the way my hand, my angle, the way I did this. Some people even like a ribbon microphone. I have some ribbon microphones. I have some really nice MXL ribbon microphones. I also have some FET microphones. I have the Warm Audio 47 Juniors. But I like tube microphones the most, especially on vocals. So I got a lot of mics for home studio, but I'm still building. I can see why so many studios like microphones. They like to have a lot of options. Because even if here's the thing, and I'm gonna talk about interfaces in a second. Your sound could change based on your combination of your chain, ranging from the way the vocalists sing or the instrument that you're miking, to your choice of microphone, to your preamp, to your compressor, then to your interface, and then into the DAW. Any of those sources can change the sound. Placement can change the sound. Acoustics can change the sound. Room settings can change the sound. It's so many factors. You can have the same vocalist, same preamp, same compressor, going to the same interface into the same DAW, but change the microphone, and the sound's gonna change. Okinawa Japan said, "How do you like the antelope plugins?" I don't have a whole lot of them. I do have the Lane. EQ, which I like a lot. I do have a couple of their EQ, like it's basically a Pultec style EQ, and I have a compressor plugin. I don't have a ton of antelope plugins simply because I already got Slate. I'm already subscribed to Slate, so I use a lot of Slate. I have Waves. I have a lot of Waves plugins. Plus, I have acoustic audio plugins. And of course, my favorite one company out of all of them is IK Multimedia T-Rex plugins. But I do have Nomad Factory plugins. I have a lot of free plugins from that. It's a website called 250 Free Plugins. I do have some plugins that are free that are actually pretty good. I do have some selected plugins, but that's the reason why. And then I use some of the DAW's plugins. A lot of DAW plugins the factory DAW plugins will surprise you. Like, for example, I don't really need to use a lot of EQ plugins. Like if I'm in Harrison Mix Bus, I have the 32C version, which is the Harrison Mix Bus, the actual console. A lot of times I just use those EQs. And the reason why I don't use, even though I have a lot of plugins from different plugin companies, the reason why I don't use a ton of plugins because the sources are already good. Most of the time you don't have to do a lot of processing on the sources, for the most part. So I don't find myself using a lot of it, but I do use the Waves API plugin. I even use the Andrew Sheps channel strip, but I also have the SSL channel strip. And a lot of times just the EQ from the SSL channel strip or even the Sheps channel strip is more than enough if I'm not using the EQ on the console or I'm using some of these EQs. I just got a pair of these Lintech. These Lintech EQs right here. Those are Pultec type EQs. I just got to plug them up and patch them in and start using those. But those are basically a way better version of my Clark Technic Pultec clones, the Lintech. So I got some of them as well. So let's see. And then, oh man, those plugins are good. I don't use them much though. Let's see. And it says, okay, Okinawa Japan says, I've heard that the antelope Zen interfaces are good. Had a guy raving about his. If you really want to hear how good the Antelope Zen Studio stuff is, there's a video. There's one with Layla Hathaway, and then there's one, I forget the name of the singer. She's doing a Michael Jackson Butterflies video with the antelope on it. You can listen to that video, and I'm gonna tell you right now, sometimes it'll make you say, I'm just gonna invest in that, and that's enough. And I would never discourage anyone if they want to invest that and just use the Zen Studio setup and use the internal plugins, the internal console and all that. You're still going to get great results, because I've always said this. This is why I'm never against whatever choices of gear people like to use and choose. If you know what you're doing, it's no different than the old way where you go in one studio and they had an API console with a 24-track machine and a bunch of outboard gear, or you go in this studio and they have a Trident console, or you go to that studio have an MCI, go to that studio have a Helios, that studio has an Audient, that studio has an SSL, that one has a knee, that studio has this, that one studio has that. Most of the time, when it sounds good, it sounds good. I don't care what console, what outboard gear, what microphones, and whatever the case. If it sounds good, it sounds good. Because most of the time, you're not going to be able to tell unless you start pulling out the CD and looking at the credits and say, okay, it was recorded at United Ocean Way, but it was mixed at Westlake, but then it was mastered at here. Because all of it, even the mastering, changes the quality of the recording. You got the front end, the recording, and the system they're using, then the mixing, and that changes the sound. And then finally the mastering. And here's another thing that we never talk about enough. If you're listening to the speaker on your Android or iPhone, you're not going to get the same quality of sound listening to, like if you're listening to, like I got a pair of Cerwin Vegas with a Sony 15-inch sub with some also set of Infinity speakers over here. I got 3 sets of speakers. I can go ABC through my deck and listen to. When I'm listening, I'm getting a more sonic experience listening through my stereo system than I would on a speaker on an Android or iPhone. You're not going to hear the low end, or you're just going to hear versus listen to a set of earbuds, or versus listen to a set of a computer speaker monitors, versus listening to in your car stereo. All those mediums formats change the way you can perceive the way that stuff is going to sound. Versus listening to something on a speaker let's say it's an elevator or whatever. So that also matters. That's why they always do these videos talk about when they say when you want to listen to something, make sure you're listening to something with a good set of monitors, a good set of speakers, and not your phone speaker. You're not going to be able to reference anything just from your phone speaker. If you're going to listen to your phone, at least plug in some earbuds. I like those Beats by Dre earbuds. Man, so let me see what else. Yes, Antelope makes fantastic interfaces. I would never say that because I have the Antelope Orion. It's in the rack. Love it. For most people, they are enough. That Zen Studio would probably be enough. But even if you don't get the Zen Studio, stuff, like I said, I can do well just using my Behringer Euphoria. It's got 16 inputs, 16 mic inputs on it, because I have the 88 A200, 8-at light pipe to it, so it gives me 16. But I also use software and plugins. But I made a video a while back about setting up your DAW and how to set up the auxiliaries and bus channels, so it will operate the same way like an actual real console. I've seen a lot of people can fix the way this stuff sound if you just set up your mixing console in your DAW. If you fix that up and set that up right, you'll be amazed. I've seen people where they'll put effects on the same channel instead of an auxiliary channel. Audio engineers hardly ever, the only time they'll insert something on that channel, they're trying to insert it. They're not going to use the physical EQ of that. They'll insert an external EQ or compressor, or maybe a specialized piece of gear to do something to that particular channel. But for the most part, we're going to send out an auxiliary signal out into an effect unit, and we're going to blend that with the channel. That's the normal way of engineering. And that's also going to make your stuff sound bigger and wider than if you just try to put a bunch of plugins on that one particular channel. Let's see what else. Okinawa Japan says, yeah, I saw the Lintech stuff this week for the first time. Good value. Yes, without a doubt. Is it a good value? Without a doubt. There is a Lintech audio on. There's one guy, he did a video that he compares. He uses a Warm Audio, a Clark Technic, the actual 1170, Universal Audio one, and then a Lindale Audio. And the Lindale Audio out of all of them was the one that sounded closest to the Universal Audio between the Warm Audio and the Clark Technic. Even though I have the Clark Technic 76s as well. But out of my Clark Technics and my Lindale Audio 76s, I also have the Pro VLAs, which the Art Pro VLAs get extremely high remarks, and I will not disagree. I have two Art Pro VLAs in the rack, so it's kind of like I got two Clark Technics, two Lindale Audios, and then I got two Pro VLAs. Plus, I have other compressors. I also have the Clark Technic 76s, which is Clark Technic 2As, which is out of Clark Technic stuff, the Clark Technic 2As are probably their best product. He says, yes, I have the Art Pro VLAs. I love them. I actually love them. So let me see. Peter Piper, I need my song mixed and mastered right now, bro. Believe it or not, now mixing from Peter, let me tell you, mixing is a subjective thing, because one mix engineer, and I'll say why that's why I don't really get into a lot of mixing for people myself, because sometimes the expectations are not what they're thinking. My goal is not to do a whole lot. Let's say you do some vocal tracks and you want the vocals to do all this stuff that you were expecting, maybe auto-tune, maybe you wanted to do, maybe just put this chorus or flange effect on their vocals, make their vocals sound like they're talking to a microphone at certain parts of the song or whatever. There are mix engineers that take their time to do that. I'm not that crafty when it comes to like that. Now, mastering, believe it or not, if you want to be safe with mastering, once you got something mixed the way you want, for mastering, like me, I use T-Rax. And T-Rax got a lot of preset mastering sets for different scenarios. I use a lot of the presets in T-Rax, just let it do its thing to get it radio quality ready when I run it through T-Rax mastering. Sometimes I'll manipulate some of the other processing in T-Rax, but really for the most part, I let it do its thing because it pretty much does it and masters to standards that will be acceptable in almost any format. So there we go. Let me see. Man Network says, so let me see. Check out the Art XY FET compressor. Stupid, cheap, and sound killer. A buddy thought brought one over, and for YouTube purpose, craps and giggles. And I was impressed. I'm impressed with art stuff altogether. Let me tell you, other than the art, like the art XY Fed that you're talking about, I'm gonna tell you a very affordable preamp that's really good, and it has an impedance set on. Is my Art Pro MPAs in the rack down there? Those are some stupid good sounding. I don't know if you can see my hand right here. Those are the Art Pro MPAs. Those are some. I have to. Art to me is a very underrated company because they make some really good stuff. I love those mic pre's. I love the VLAs, the compressors. They're a really good company. And affordable. Very, very affordable. Peter says, I hear you, but mine is basic. It's no rap, it's rap, no auto-tune. Okay, now, yeah, I can, if you were talking about now, if it comes to mixing and you want it, like, let's say I'm gonna go old school for a minute. When it comes to rap, I'm old school. I'm not new. This is the reason why I still have MPC, MPC Renaissance and MPC Studio here. And recording beats and drums and stuff like that on here. I would say when it comes to hip hop for me, I'm Tupac, Biggie Smalls, and older. Or I like Nelly type of hip hop. I like Naughty by Nature. I like when Heavy D was alive. I like when Guru from Gangstar was alive. That type of hip hop, yes, I can do. I can mix that. But sometimes these guys, these new rappers, they want auto-tune because they're trying to do. I hear a lot of it's like I can. Let's say I do a beat. Let's say I'm doing a beat. I'm doing, and the guy's going, yeah, yeah, and they'll do and then they want this auto-tune. I want, it's like kind of like this. It's like a monotone type thing. I can't get into it. I can't get into a lot of, I can even get into when Lil Jon was hot. Yeah, okay. I can get into that because I listen to Lil Jon. I can't really get into Lil Wayne. I like Lil Jon, but I'm not really feeling Lil Wayne. Or I can get into Jay-Z. Kanye is a little, but I'm more old school, like with Heavy D. So, or when Queen Latifah used to rap, or Salt and Pepper, I'm more of that hip hop. But my main genre for me is R&B, jazz, pop, gospel, some EDM. I even like rock and country. But modern hip hop, I just can't get into it. That's just me, and probably my age. So let's see. Let me go back to, because I guess it'll be the time then. Let me see. It says, okay, Julius DeBerry said, I don't really care about using anything outboard except preamps. Anything else can be made in the box for me. And it's the one thing for a simple reason. Recall. Analog recall is a pain. Digital recall is fire. Well, that's like, the ultimate digital, and I'll tune on what Julius is saying. Of course, the ultimate recall is like, let's say you're working in your DAW and you hit save. And or even let's say you're working in your DAW, you save something like Cakewalk has auto save. Every 15 minutes, it saves. Whether you hit save or not, it saves it. Unless you go in the presets, preferences, and turn it off. But it auto saves. It just saves. You just didn't know it did it. So you working on something, all of a sudden, power goes out. You can load Cakewalk back in, and your project could come right back up. And whatever plugins that you use, if you was using VST instruments, or whatever, all that pulls up. That's the beauty of working in a DAW versus working on a tape or ADATs or anything else. That stuff is not coming back up on a tape machine or whatever. That stuff is not coming back up. In a DAW, it is. Logic Pro, Pro Tools, Reaper, Harrison. I don't care what DAW, Mixcraft 9, whatever you're using. It's coming back. That's what's great about plugins and DAWs over tape machines. The recall. The same thing with your recall and your mixer and your DAW. For the most part, like for example, these are still pretty much set up from the last mix I did on here. I haven't moved a fader or a knob on the EQ, or I haven't moved any of the settings on none of the outboard gear. Now, I would say this on preamps. I think that's the one thing that they haven't gotten well enough when it comes to plugins. It's preamps. I think they've gotten compressors good, EQs good, definitely reverb and delays, stuff like that. You know, everyone knows about the Fab Filter EQ, but there's a lot of them at the SSL channel strip. I mean, all these plugins when it comes to EQs and compressors are really good as far as plugin. Preamps, I don't think they're there yet, because I think preamps, whether using, like I said, I always bragging about the Tone Beast. That's a killer. We already know about my Avalon. Avalon is just it's historic. It's like the holy. It's one of the top 10 studio preamps out there. If you ever went to any commercial studio, you go. A lot of studios will have it. Some people don't care about some people aren't big on the Avalon preamps like I get the 737, but I think those are like the epitome, especially for vocals. So I hear you on that, Julius. I definitely hear you. Peter says, I hear you, but mine is basic. Let me see. Let me go back. I read that. I started my career on dirt cheap art preamps. Now I have a rack and racks of neat preamps. I still credit art for getting me in the industry. Like I said, I use my other high-end preamps, but I definitely give praise to my art Pro MPAs. Those are really good preamps. Let me see, Peter. I got the feel once you hear it, you're gonna be impressed. Okay. When I get a chance, we'll probably get a chance to set up a time. You know, maybe that's a bit of setup before I can listen to it. Probably have to put in a link or something, or in the comments for this video. Put in the comments a link for me to listen to it. Jules said Jay-Z is one of the goats. Kanye older stuff was great. It's changed now. I think Kanye, with the whole, you know, the MAGA stuff, and you know, and trying to be a preacher, and I'm gonna tell you honestly, and this is just my personal opinion. I think everything we've seen, what's going on with Kanye, and you know, the whole Kim being married to Kim, and everything that, and how they got divorced, and you know how Kanye's not the same. I honestly, here's what I think. I think Kanye's never really recovered from his mother dying. I think that, and that's just mentally, that's mental. I think that's been mental, because Kanye, when he before all that, was a brilliant rapper, and on top of that, an amazing producer. But now that I think it's the death of his mother is really why he's so, you know, when we have trauma in our life, and it don't always have to be physical trauma, it can be mental trauma. A lot of times we don't know how to handle it. And being a celebrity, and you know, people are still human, whether you're a celebrity or not. You're still human. So Julian said modern hip hop. Their pants are too tight. You talking about skinny jeans? Is that why we're doing a stinky leg? The stinky leg? The nah, doing the stinky. Oh, let me stop. Okay. Oh yeah, Man Network says get the DBX for sure. Yeah, I have the DBX 166. I have one in this rack, and I got one downstairs. It's one of my go-to compressors for drums. Is the DBX 166. You can get the single ones like the DBX 160s. Good luck finding it. They're kind of pricey now. They used to be super affordable, but now they're pricey because everyone's seen them in every top-notch studio using DBX 160s. But the DBX 166s are still super affordable. and they're very, very good and affordable. So I agree. Get the DBX 166s. Just you imagine you finish a mix on an outboard console and they want changes. You got to remember exactly where you had everything set or look at notes and stuff. That's wild. But that's, believe it or not, I was just talking about that very same thing. But they did it. That's what that's what one of the assistant engineers did. The minute the engineer made changes and he saw that he wasn't making, he was fine with that. Like, let's say he set the EQ, blah, 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 blah. He wrote it down. Channel 2, SSL, whatever. He's got a high pass shelf. You know, he's got a low shelf. Mid, he's boosting 25K here on mid high, and he's cutting 300 dBs, 300 at 2 dBs. He wrote it down. And, you know, using a notch filter or using whatever, you know, whatever. He wrote it down. So, yeah, that's, oh, yeah, that's what man we're saying. Yeah, Julius. Recall sheets. Everyone project I do has at least 100 recall sheets. And that's the reason why if you ever see engineers, that was the biggest complaint. And one thing about I know a lot of people probably never got a chance to work on an SSL. You work on an SSL, you're looking up at the screen and you're doing your recall, you could turn the knob and it'll have a little indicator. So when you put the knob back for that channel, it'll light up. It'll tell you, boom, okay, it's set. And you can do that every single, but it was time consuming because it can take hour and a half to set up. But that is only on the console. That's not including the outboard gear and everything that was plugged in the patch bay. But this is why they wrote detailed notes. Because they had to go through all that recall to set everything up just so they can make the changes and then come up with a new recall sheet for the new changes. So they had to do that, set up the old way to make the changes and then recall, you know. So it was a lot of notes. You're talking, if you ever see studios in the note bindings for every artist, yes, thick. Including mic placement. Yeah, the artists here, the mic was 8.5 inches in front of the mic. We used the Newman U87 or whatever, the Telefunken. We used the Telefunken 251. We used the, you know, whatever. We used the U67 tube mic, you know, whatever the case. Because here's another downside to analog gear. Temperature changes in the room. The console is always on, so the heat, the room can be toasted. That's why you got to have a serious HVAC system. Because when the gear's on, even when I turn all this gear on, it can get toasty in here. That's why I love working in the winter in here. Because it's so cold outside that with all this gear on, it never gets so where you're sweating. In the summer, yeah, this gear can get toasty. That's another drawback to gear. But they had to go back and look at the gear and say, okay, we use this preamp, and God forbid a channel doesn't go out or whatever on a certain piece of outboard gear. You know, that's just, you got to remember though, you have to remember in those days, that's the only way you could work. Pro Tools and plugins was non-existent 30 plus years ago. Even 10 years ago, we made humongous strides and change just in the last 10 years. We're talking, it's 2024. It's about to be 2025. Even the changes of what DAWs and plugins can do now, just think about this for a second. Let's say you are a Reason user. Everyone remember when Reason Studio, remember when it was Propeller Head, Reason 2 or 3, or if you were Cakewalk and you had Cakewalk, it was Cakewalk 3.0, then became Cakewalk Pro Audio, then it became Cakewalk Sonar, then eventually Cakewalk by BandLab, and now it's going back to Cakewalks. Everyone remembers how those DAWs were 15, 20 years ago. Look at Cubase the way it was. I got Cubase SX, which is a 20-year-old program, compared to Cubase now. I got Cubase 11, and there's Cubase 12 and whatever. The humongous changes to this way these DAWs have changed over the years are strides better than what they were even 10 years ago. That's just how fast this stuff is. So let's see. Let's see. Kanye. Um, let's see. Let me see. Let me where I'm at. Okay, UAD. Oh, Judah says UAD. Pre's Unison plugins. He's doing it strong. He loves them. Okay, I've never used UAD. I don't have any UAD um, um, plugins or anything Unison. I know they have a lot of their Unison plugins in there, especially when you're using like their UAD interface and stuff like that. A lot of people are big on universal audio stuff. I've never used it. 100, man, that's wow, bro. So, okay, Kanye gospel record is great. Love it. They sound the sound. Okay, never, like I said, no. And then man says, now speaking of MAGA, I did the audio for a recent Trump ad. Oh, cool. Okay. And then Okinawa just says, thanks, man. We'll buy them. Yep. Then let me see. He said, how's the Lisa 36 compressor? Good one. Those have been around forever. Let me tell you, I have two Alesis 3630s up here, and I got two Alesis 3630s. When I was working in a recording studio in Texas, that's what we used. You have to be careful with 3630s and where you use them. You have to be real subtle with 3630s because it can sound like it's squashing. Even at 3-to-1 compression, it can sound like it's squash if you're not careful. But overall, because I know how to use 3630s, they have always been one of my most favorite ones because you have a ton of control. I'll give you an example when I say this. If you use let's say you use 1176, your ratio and the threshold on those compressors are fixed. The input, the output, the attack release, and you have your ratio settings, and that's it. You got a choice of 4-to-1, 8-to-1, 16-to-1, 20-to-1, which is basically limiting, and then all buttons in, which gives you this distorted, it's like this rock setting. What I like about compressors like the 3630 is I don't always have to do 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 or 4-to-1. I can do 3.5-to-1 or 2.5. It's a variable control of ratio, variable control of attack and release. And if you're real careful, you can get real musical with those controls because you're not fixed. This is the reason why some people love having EQs that you can actually go to more frequency range than having presets like on a Neve. Neve would have something like 60 hertz, 200, whatever, 330 or whatever. You got to go those, and then you can adjust the dB level control of that. They're fixed, but those are the most ideal if you want to use those. Same thing with API. You got notches of 2. There are increments of 2 dB gains or attenuation or whatever the case, or boosting. Some people don't want to boost just 2 dBs. You might only want to boost 1 dB. You can't do that on an API. If it's 0, you can only reduce or gain 2 dBs of gain of that frequency. You might not want to do that. You only might want to boost just 1 dB or 3 dBs. So an API 550 may not be ideal EQ to use. So that's what it's about with 3630s. Now, man says he doesn't. I don't like the 3630s. They destroy bottom end bass. Once again, it depends on how you use it. Like I don't use the 3630s on basses at all. But it's all how you use it. Everyone knows, for example, you more likely are going to use a LA2A for bass for compression simply because of how the optocell works for that compressor than you would have on a 3630. But I have used a 3630 on a bass guitar before. So it just depends. Okinawa says, I used to love Cubase XX. I still like it, but of course, you know, with Cubase Elements and Cubase today and all the things you can do in a modern DAW, you probably won't look back. You probably won't go back to older DAWs. I like working on DAWs just because the limitations of what they were, it forces you to think, how can I make this work in a modern setting using older stuff and still make it sound good? So it's more of a challenge, but I still play around with it from time to time. He said, oh yeah, man, I can see you loving the 3630 being an R&B guy. Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because it's kind of like this. That was the perfect example. This is why I said not all studios are equal. You can go, let's say we go into a recording studio and they have an API legacy console. So naturally it's going to have API EQs on it. For the most part. Unless they put a module out and change those modules out. And you know, they have all the usual ubiquitous outboard gear, but the console. In the recording world, we know that the API legacy console is more fitting for rock bands more than anything else because of the punchiness of them. Most people are going to, if you're R&B, you probably it's going to sound a little too aggressive recording through an API versus if you went through a Neve or even a Tascam M700 as an example. It's going to sound a little smoother like you want for R&B, right? Because R&B is a lot more synth heavier than it is guitar. The punching of rock guitars that would come into an API is the reason why it works so well for rock, especially you got a guy, he's probably whatever type of guitar he's using and what type of amp he's using, it's going to punch through that API console. That's why it's a favorite versus Trident consoles, Neve consoles, a little bit more forgiving on the R&B. It's just the tone of it. Let me see what else. Peter, I haven't uploaded anywhere. I would have to email it to you. Or you can always, here's the thing. You can always start, this is from Peter. You can always start a SoundCloud or even Reverb Nation. And, they got, you don't always have to pay. You can always do, where you do a simple free account and load up a few tracks and then SoundCloud that way, you can go to link and go to SoundCloud and people better hear it. Let me see. Oh, here's another question. I'm gonna get to that right quick. I think I put my email address if you want me to hear stuff. It's like showshorty99 at hotmail.com. So if you're interested, it's like showshorty99, which is SHO, then SHO again, RTY 99 at hotmail.com. I check that from time to time, and you can send a link there, and I can listen to it. And then, of course, because it'll have your email link in it, then I can always email you back. I'll type it in just in case you're curious. There. Okay. That's how you can, that's my email. Okay. So now, Brian, okay, Brian, how's it going? Brian Chalmers says, anyone try the Clark Technic 76? They just got dirt cheap. like $80 unused. I have 2 of them. My thoughts on them. They'll get the job done. That's all I can say about them. They're not bad, but they're not great either. But for $80, they're worth picking up. I'll say that, because I didn't pay $80 for mine. I paid $299 for mine. I would definitely. Here's what I would use the Clark Technics. If I was to use those 76s, I would either use it on maybe a snare drum, maybe rooms, or maybe male vocals. For the most part, I wouldn't use them on female. I like my Pro VLAs better on female vocals. That's pretty much where I would use them. You might get away with it on the master bus. I haven't tried on the master bus. Now, what sounds better, a lot better than those Clark Tech 76s would be the the ones I got. I got the Dale Audio, which is the 76. They're about $399 a piece. Those are worth picking up. I would definitely. That's all I would say. So let me see. Seven Sun Music says, I recently purchased Ozone 11 for mastering. It's great. I find myself using less on the master bus now that in running the master through Ozone, it has AI function that gives a great SRT. I don't know what SRT stands for, but sound. I've never tried the Ozone 11. Like me, for my mastering choice, would definitely be IK Monk. To me, is T-Rex. That's my mastering choice. That's just mine. Not saying that there aren't better ones, but I love how the masters come out on T-Rex. Because when I'm listening to it through here or in my car, whatever, I get the same quality sound through different formats. So that's just me. So that's just my choice. Now he said, how about bass? Yeah, I played it. I plugged up when I played a bass track and plugged up the Clark 76s. They sounded good. I'm not going to complain about that, but I haven't used them enough in different areas to try. So I'm like this with any compressor. If you guy it and you buy them, one thing I say for $80, they're definitely worth picking up, for sure. Definitely for sure. And this man said bass is fine, but lower the volume before going into the compressor so it doesn't distort heavy, unless you want it to distort. Okay. And then Brian said, I think that's why the Clark is so cheap now. Once again, now one thing I can say about the Clark Technics that most people don't know about, they do have Midas transformers in them. So they do have input and output transformers in them. Then they do have tubes. So yeah, there you go. A lot of people it is when it comes to tubes, there is a big, what's the word I'm looking for? There is a huge controversy about, does tubes make a difference when you upgrade them? Now, I do, like all my tubes and every gear that I bought. I'm trying to find, the other brand. Some of the tubes I would buy would be like these Muller's, these 12-8, these 12AX7 tubes. This is the original box. These are the original Chinese tubes. Like, I know for a fact I changed the tubes out of my Clark Technics, right? And I bought Muller tubes. I bought a lot of Muller's, but I also bought the other brand. I'm drawing a blank on the other brand. And took the old, because most of those Chinese tubes, I took them out and bought Muller's. Another thing, I'm going to tell you a Clark Technic piece of gear that's really good to look at. And I like them a lot. And this is the reason why they're so sought after for Clark Technic. Would be the Clark Technic KT2As. Some people call it 2A2 KTs, but the KT2As, which is the 1176, I mean the 11 LA2A compressor clone by Clark Technic. All you have to do is buy the OptoCell upgrade, the T4 OptoCell upgrade from Sweetwater, and man, those compressors shine. Okay, so let me see. He said, "Oh, I think that's why the Clark is so cheap now." Okay, possibly. Some you say I send my tube bus out through an SSL6 with a fusion on the insert. The only thing I may use on my tube bus is a saturation plugin and an EQ. My mixer sounds so much better now. I'm definitely not going to disagree with that. Brian says the Lindale was only slightly more before, but even though they're slightly more, definitely worth picking up if you can get your hands on some Lindales. I got them. So, and the man said the Clark is cheap because they sold a million of them to people who didn't really produce music. So there are too many on the used market. I'm not going to disagree with that either. I bought them because I wanted to try them out. And I tried them out, and I'm like, once again, when you ask me, they're okay. They're not bad. But now that I got the Lindale Audios, am I going to go through Lindale Audios first? Yes. I would say you're probably even better off getting the DBX 166. But if you can pick up the Clark Technics cheap, like for $80 a piece, then by all means, yes. That's what I would say about that. You're not going to go wrong paying. In other words, if you don't like them, you didn't spend a whole lot of money. But if you do like them, you didn't spend a whole lot of money. That's kind of how you look. That's kind of how you look at that. You can look at it that way. Brian says also, I'm definitely going to get one this week. Like I said, try it. And this says Revive does a mod for $250. If you can invest in a mod to modify it by Revive, definitely do that. Like I said, when I got my Clark Technic K2As, the first thing I did was change the opto. I did a video on it. Me changing the T4 T4Bs. Yeah, I think it's T4B. Opto cell from Sweetwater. $99 upgrade. But yeah, because that's what really makes even the T4 opto cell in the actual LA2A. When you change the opto cell, that's what makes the LA2A shine. And everyone knows the best sounds for an LA2A has always been bass and vocals. Is where I use them too. So, or you know, always try plug-in. But like I said, if you can pick up a Clark Technic for $80, if I saw a Clark Technic for $80, I would pick it up. I know I would if I didn't have any. But I already got them. But I paid $299 a piece for mine. Okay. Yep. $80 compressor with $250 mod could be nice and still cheap. Yep. I think with for $80, then you buy a $250 mod, you're still, you're only $330. There's always tax and shipping, but versus spending $400, $500, $600, $700 on a compressor. That's kind of a no-brainer too. Let me see. Man says I would find and use Audioscape 76 before spending money on a Revive. That's a choice. But then again, everything is choice. I don't think Brian would be bad. I don't think that would be a bad decision for him to spend $80 because he's only spending $80 and $250 mod. I'm gonna have to disagree. The thing is, here's the thing. Finding a cheap used Audioscape 76, that's the challenge. Finding anything Audioscape cheap. I haven't seen too many Audioscape pieces of gear cheap. You know, most of the time when I look for Audioscape, especially because I used to want to get their 2A clone from Audioscape, they were still, you know, $900, $999, $1,100, $1,200. But even then, I don't think you're gonna. Yeah, see what I'm saying? You said it's a good starter piece for a mix bus, and it's between $400 to $500. Once again, you take $500 versus $330. Sometimes this is about cost saving. Now, I don't think Brian would do wrong with buying one for $80 and trying it out on certain mixes. Just buy it before you even do the $250 mod. There was one guy, he don't like him. He did a video on why he don't like the Clark Technic. There's a couple of videos on, you know, especially there's one. It's called Spectre Studio Sounds or whatever, Spectre Sound Studio, whatever. He's in Canada. He doesn't like the Clark. He did a video, but I think there's a hidden agenda behind him. Bashing. But there's videos, I've seen a video where other videos praising the Clark Technic stuff. So it's kind of like, and I'll go with even high-end gear. Oh, Brian says, I hate that guy. He's always screaming. Yeah, you already know what I'm talking about. You always got a video, and I don't know why. I'll take this Behringer old interface, and he'll go something like, Behringer, it's freaking gone. You know, that's why you need. You know, that's Glenn, right? I'd laugh about that. The reason why I'm not big on this channel is because his whole world is wrapped around thrash or hardcore metal. And everyone knows from me, if you ever understand from me, the genres of music that I like old school hip hop. I like, we're talking, but I do like hip hop. I like rock. My favorite rock song is still Back in Black by AC/DC. That is like, I'm a big car racing nut. So when I'm in my Mustang, my modified Mustang, my nitrous Mustang, when I'm at the track, that's one of the songs I have to throw in to get me hyped to go down the track. But of course, I like pop. I even like country. Like one of my favorite country songs, believe it or not, is called White Liar by Miranda Lambert. I like that song. Hey, White Liar. I love that song by Miranda Lambert. I like quite a few country songs, but I am everyone knows by now my number one go-to music is R&B. By nature, R&B. Everyone from Cameo to Confunction to Earth, Wind and Fire to Stephanie Mills to Freddie Jackson to Luther Vandross to, R&B. It is my all-time favorite. But I do listen to, pop music. I listen to, Level 42, Something About You. I listen to, We Can Dance, You, I listen to all that. Chicago, I just, everything. Because it's music to me. It's music. And there's a lot of musicians playing that. Especially if it's heavy musicians playing it, I'm definitely, because I'm a musician. So I definitely have a hardcore jazz from Najee to Grover Washington Jr., definitely jazz. About Joe Sample, Bob James, big time jazz, George Duke. And because I play gospel, I'm a church musician, so I play in gospel every week, so definitely gospel. So I'm not one genre limited. So I wouldn't range my channel around just metal. And that's the reason, that's the turnoff channel for me. Because that's all he talks about is metal, instead of teaching people about recording. Even though he kind of teaches about recording, but it's only, I'm going to teach you how to record guitars for metal. Well, maybe the guy, he may not be a metal guitarist. He might be a folk guitar playing acoustic guitar, and he want to do how to record acoustic guitar to record a vocal track, or it could be a spoken word. Or that's where people want to learn. They want to know how to record for their genre. They're not just, I don't want to tune in your channel because all you talk about is metal. So, all right, let me go back. Brian says, I enjoy watching you shred the keys in the oh, thank I used to do teaching videos. I took a lot of those videos down. I appreciate that. I used to do a lot because it didn't seem like I was getting a lot of interest. Some people want me to bring that back. I was even showing people how to record the right chords for certain songs. Like I did one video on how to do the chords for like I don't know by SWV. You me. I'm trying to think of the song because I get so weak by SWV. I'm weak. Because I saw some tutorial videos where people were teaching how to do these songs and the chords are wrong. I'm like, that's not the right chords, you know. So I started doing it, but it didn't seem like getting a lot of interest, so I stopped. Let's see, man, at Martin mix bus or master bus. If the mix bus, which mix bus? Drums, vocals, guitar. Yeah, because there are he might be talking about the master bus. Because I know what you're saying, man. You're talking about sometimes we'll set a mix, like my key one mix. These might be for keys, vocals, whatever, different. You might want to send the overall mix for that drums. You have all your drums on the channel, then you're going to send those to mix bus 1 and 2, and then that's going to go to the master bus. So I see what you're saying. He's trying to get clarification. Then let's see, Okinawa, Japan. That was the best part for me. Let me see. That was the best part for me. We didn't see that much. Yeah, I made that video how I create and record a song because people always see me doing these talking videos. They never saw me do enough of those type of videos. That's how I'm gonna start doing more videos like that. The next video I want to do is I'm going to talk exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So that way it helps some people how I get the results I get. Let me see. Okinawa, Japan says, I got 2 old Yamaha O2Rs V2. You know, I love those digital mixers. I got a digital mixer over here I use, but I think those are great mixers. A lot of people don't like those older mixers because the EQ, the reverbs, and the compressor are just their defaults. Unlike the Behringer X32 or the Personas Live, where you can actually insert external plugins instead of using this factory. But to me, if you can make like my digital mixer, if you can make that shine just using the factory stuff, then you're good. Because that's what they were doing with those digital mixers. Let's see. Brian says, how do you choose which synth to use? How do I choose what synth to use? Based on, I've made a video like this, and I'm gonna try not to be very long because more comments are coming in. For example, I've owned my Triton Studio for 20 years, so I know the sounds in it. So it could be a certain preset sound that comes to my head. I said, this song would be good for that. Or I've had my Yamaha Motif for years. I know the sounds in them. It's like my Chord Cronus and my Chord and all these synthesizers up here. I know what sounds are in them. I don't remember every single sound, but for the most part, I know what they sound like. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, when I'm coming up with something, I'll say, I know I want to use that because I know that sound would work for that. Same thing with my Kurzweils. But I do got a lot of synths, like my G6s and my Roland Phantom, my new Phantom 6. And I do have some Kurzweil, like my PC3 LE7. That got a lot of awesome sounds in it. Then these boards up here. And then I got rack modules. Then I got 10,000. I can't even remember half all the VST sounds I got. in my VST plugins, because I got VIP software, I got Synth Anthology, I got the core collection. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I have to, sometimes I go through sounds and I'll just sit there and say, I have to go through sounds. Like I love the Korg Wave Station. That is like the ultimate filler sound module. And that's why I got the core collection, because of that filler sound module. So, oh, and then Martin said master bus. Sorry. So he was clarifying what man was asking about the master bus. So he's talking, I kind of figured he's talking about the master bus. And then Brian says he's always trying to sell core. Yeah, because he's paid to do that. We're talking about Glenn on the Spectral Sound. Yeah, he's paid to do that. You know, you'll find a lot of them, like Real Recording Studio. I think it's Real Recording, or I can't remember his channel. He's always talking about, become a Patreon and go to mine, and you'll get my master bus class or my. I'm like this. I need to get into more teaching videos. I don't charge anybody anything to learn. There's enough videos out there that you can learn without someone, people are making profit. That's why my channel isn't monetized. I'm not trying to make money off of people. There's too much free information out there for me to make money. Now, if I was broke and but that's how some people get it. It's kind of like y'all seen the advertised commercials where you're trying to lose weight. Well, study has shown that these certain foods are bad to your health. They never reveal the foods. They'll go through 15, 20 minutes of saying, well, if you go through my 5-step method, I can get you to lose weight using these things and avoiding these 5 foods. And we're all still like, what are the 5 foods that are bad for us? We want to know. Come to find out, all this time, biggest thing, avoid a lot of sugar, a lot of bread, a lot of red meat, stuff like that. Be a lot more active, things like that. Stuff, common sense. I realized when I was in the Army, I have my physical fitness book. Of course, I ain't been in the Army in over 10 years. But all I got to do is read. It's got so much nutritional information on how to lose weight and get back to that I can lose weight if I just go and listen out. I don't have to pay anyone for common knowledge stuff. Everyone knows sugar and bread, and especially sugar and chocolate, is going to make you fat. Sodas, beer, everyone knows what makes you fat. I don't have to go into trying to sell you some sort of trickery book or whatever. So that's the same thing with people with trying to tell you how to set up a compressor or how to set up an EQ. There's so many videos out there that shows you how to do that. Let me get back to, I always feel like the videos are just ads. Yeah, let's see. I'll say, okay, so Martin, with the budget, you see, yeah, but let's okay, but see, use the AudioScape bus compressor. It's hard to beat, and you'll have a lifeline around $500-$600. Okay, I don't have an AudioScape, never tried it. I'm not going to disagree. 3K, okay, a particular cream, and you'll be done for life. Oh, okay, you can find a used particular cream for under $1,500. Yeah, Reverb is a good place to start looking for a lot of gear. I go on Reverb all the time looking for stuff. So it's basically an SSL-G comp bus compressor and stereo pull tech wrapped into one unit. Yeah, if you can find a particular cream, I've been looking for one of them too. Okay, I see. Well, where can I find? I see. Like I said, try Martin is asking, where can I find them used? Like I said, Reverb. Try Reverb. He said Vintage Key, other places you can find on Google. Yeah, Reverb. Yep. Thanks, man. God bless you, brother. Okay, let's see. You're welcome. It's a top tier piece that some of the best commercial studios have. Each studio have them. And it's kind of, speaking of gear, it's kind of like that. I would go into, like, we call it dream gear, like, for example, owning Tube Tech. Some people like the Channel Unlimited, definitely like Pultex, Distressors, 1176s by Universal Audio, Teletronic LA2As, API 550s and 550As and 550B EQs, Lang EQs, what other cream? 1073s, 1081s, 1084 by Neves, API through 12s, 512s. What else? The list just goes on as far as top-notch gear. You know, U67, U47s, U87s, AKG C414 microphones, Royal 121s, Sennheiser 421s for toms, SM57s, top mic, top bottom, SMB7. What other microphones? Just goes out. The list just goes on and on. But then your pockets better run deep if you want a lot of that gear. An SSL 6000, if you got the room, because the console weighs like 9,000 pounds. Just, you know, which is another controversial subject about people like, do I need a console? Me, I don't need a console. I prefer a console. I rather work on a console. Let's see. Let me see. I'm trying to get a few one U rack since old Yamaha and Roland stuff. You know, honestly, and this is my honest opinion. This is just my opinion. I don't have nostalgic 80s analog boards. I like the fact, like, for example, my Roland Phantom 6 with the controls that I can do on that board, especially with the EX upgrades that it has for it, to give you all the classic Roland, Juno sounds and all those nostalgia sounds from the 80s. I would invest in a Roland Phantom 6 or a Roland Phantom with the EX already in it. And that probably would be all the board you need, even to create those nostalgic 80s vintage analog sounds. That's just my opinion. And if you want to have one other board, a modern board, I still think that as far as the warmth of this board is like my Core Chronos. I got the Core Chronos X. Out of all and I got 27 boards. Those two boards will probably be the number that would be everything you would ever need to get every possible sound you could ever possibly want in recording. Because overall, this is what's said, and one person said, once you've gotten quite a few of EP sounds or synth sounds or string sounds or bass sounds or whatever in one board, you're not going to hear tremendous differences having as many boards I got between all of them. It's just, now it gets to a point where it's kind of like every other board I got is just overkill. But it's a collection thing, because these are boards I always wanted to own. I definitely don't need them for the sounds now. I can get away with just my Roland Phantom 6 and my Core Chronos, and I'm set for sounds across the board for any possible sound I want to do, because you got ability to manipulate and write your own sounds as well. But that's just me. Let me see. I'm trying to let's see. Martin said these courses are mediocre at best. He's talking about going back to those courses that we're talking about, Spectrum Sound, and those people that try to sell courses. Once again, there are a lot of channels like me. I do some teaching from time to time. You don't have to pay for a lot of those classes that you can learn from channels like mine when I'm teaching them. There are a lot of channels out there. And the man says, I sold my SSL. There is one guy, I can't think of his name. I think he was in Los Angeles. Then he moved to Nashville. I was watching his channel, and he did a video where he's in Nashville now. And he said he was excited about buying this SSL console. And I watched his video where he had installed it. And then he said he loved the SSL, but then he said he got rid of it. He said he sold it because his reason was that one of the reasons why he sold it, because SSLs are noisy. And he said it, and that's like anything when you deal with analog gear, you're going to get noise. You got to be careful with noise. That was the biggest thing between an analog console going to analog tape machine and analog gear, was because as you push the volumes of all this gear, you start to hear undertone hisses and noises. And a lot of times when the music's going, you can't really hear it subtle until nothing's playing. It's kind of like turn up a channel and you going shh, shh, shh. Even though I can just get some, it's still there. That's the noise that you won't get if you're completely digital, especially in the box. You don't get those hissing, amplified noise coming from the gear. So that's the reason why a lot of people are trying to get away from noise as much as possible. And it can be tough. And there are, you know, this is why they had noise reduction. You know, the whole thing with Dolby noise reduction was invented in the 80s, and noise reduction altogether, just to get rid of noise. So other than that, let's see, I'm looking forward to watching your past and future videos on using console. Thank you for all you share with us. Oh, thanks. Like I said, I did several videos on how I use the Allen and Heath. I did a few videos on the Behringer. And I'm thinking about taking those videos down, but I hate to take the videos down because one's got like 30,000 views. So I hate to throw it down. Even though when I watched that video, what I don't like about and I will admit this, like I admitted in the beginning, what I don't like about my videos is just my video recording. I'm not the greatest video recorder because I'm trying to hold the camera. I'm trying to show something at the same time. It's just me. A lot of times, these other YouTubers will have help. Either they have their wife, their girlfriend, or they have other friends or whatever. They have people helping with the camera. I don't have that video help. It's by me. So I'm sitting there trying, and I'm on top of that, I'm trying to do it live. So I'm trying to do it live and on the point because I'm trying to show people the best way. Like I was showing people, when you look at the notches on the console, you'll see that zeros up here and below that, everything's negative numbers. So it's kind of like relating when you bring a volume down. It's kind of like as I bring up, how is my, as I bring the volume up, at my threshold point on my compressor, as I bring the volume up, where I got my thresholds, when the compressor is going to kick in. So you might have a compressor set up at -30 threshold to kick in. So when you bring the volume up, whether it's on the console or in your DAW, and -30, once it goes to -30, and as you go into Unity, the compressor is going to kick in. The attack is going to show you how fast it's going to kick in based on your attack, you know, and how much output compared to input. 4 input to 1 output is your ratio. That's what's going to affect. And then the release, how fast you're hearing what the compressor's doing on your release. And if it's bringing the volume down, you can bring up the makeup gain. So I try to show stuff like that in the videos like that, but some of the videos, I wasn't getting a whole lot of feedback. You know, sometimes I would just thumbs up. And sometimes a thumbs up, sometimes I know people just thumbing up because I made a video, or they thumbs up because they like the info. And I'm like, I'm not getting enough input, so that's why I don't do that enough. So if you want me to do more explaining as you bring volume, because as you bring in volume, there's one of the videos I recommend is called The Art of Mixing by David Gibson. That video is like, I think that's one of the best instructional videos out there, hands down, when it comes to mixing. And even, you know, just when he's talking about what gear does and how to use it and all that, it's called The Art of Mixing by David Gibson. It's on YouTube. It's about 3 hours long, but it's worth, in this business, it is worth the 3 hours of watching that video. So oh man, so stop taking your videos down. I miss a bunch of your old stuff. Like I said, if I did a video and it's got like only 50 views versus I got another video that's got 1,000 views, I'm looking at the video with the 50 views and like, and then on top of that, it's like maybe one comment. To me, it's like, well, maybe people just weren't interested in that. Another reason why it's hard for me to do the videos, because sometimes I'll do a 3-part video. You have to watch all three parts. And the first video will get like 1,000 views, but then the second video only gets 200 views. The third video gets maybe 150. I'm like, if it's 1,000 views on the first video, it should be 1,000 videos on the second and 1,000 on the third. You would think. But that tells me not all 1,000 people watching the second and third video. And then turn around, I'll get a question about the video, that the first video, part 1, about, I get this video, but I don't understand this and how do you do that? And it's been explained in part 3. That's frustrating to me. It will explain your question if you watch all 3 parts. You know, so that's why I'm kind of hit or miss on taking these videos down. But I will try to stop taking. I've gotten so many people jumped on me. Like the one video I regret when I first started my channel was called "The Real Truth About the Music Industry." I got 35,000 views, and I hated that I took that video down. 35,000 views, and I wish I hadn't taken it down. I tried to do it again, but it didn't have the same impact. I was talking about how the record labels were ripping people off and charging you for eating at a restaurant, and how they charge you, and how you're not making money off the point system, and the whole scam of the whole thing, and how it was the real truth. And people were like, wow, I didn't really know the music industry was like, yes, the music industry is dirty like that. Let me see a few more questions, then I got to interview, because it's over 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I'm looking for. Let me see. It's the content and the info that counts, not the polish. Keep those videos up, please. Okay. I appreciate y'all. Okay, I promise I'll keep them up. The nitty gritty is what we need, and you share. Not much of that available. This is probably why I don't have fancy intros or music going, and I have some YouTubers will come in, they'll start the video, and then they'll say, well, we got the latest compression. So let's talk about it. Then I have an intro, because and then on that they're monetized. And before we go, this video is sponsored by Mahogany Cables. The Mahogany Cables are the Holy Grail. I don't do that. It said, man, they said your SSL butt hurt videos are the funniest on the internet. And when I made that video, when they came out, because I made the first video was just the SSL butt hurt video was actually a caveat to the first video, talking about, okay, here we go, another product that can no one afford. And I'm talking about SSL, because SSL's whole concept now is they make their money off their name. Just like with Neve. Neve makes their money off the name. Not saying, but when I saw that SSL 6, I am not saying it's a bad product. But when it came out, it was SSL was 3 fixed band EQ, 2 mic pre's, 12 channels, 4 channels mono, 4 channels stereo, which makes it 12 because you can pan left or right to get, So basically you're only getting, or I think it was 4 mic pre's, 4 mono channels, stereo channel, 3 fixed EQs, even though it can act as an interface in a controller, but they want $3,000. This is what I was thinking. I was like, I'm only getting 4 mic pre's for $3,000. I could see it a Behringer X32, 16 to 32 mic pre's, one of the two, 16 to 32 mic pre's, or even the Personas live, or the Yamaha TF5, or even the Midas M32. 32 inputs, you get a choice of built-in plugins, and on top of that, you get 32 mic pre's, and you got 32 channels of controllable EQ. And you can work it as a live mixer, and you can work it as a DAW controller for the same price. The two didn't, and some people say, well, you're getting SSL. And I also use that with a comparison to, let me see, the SSL Origin. $60,000 console, SSL Origin. Or sometime I'm on there, I get on the internet and I look and I see, let's say a vintage SSL, because the Origin is not a small console. Origin is about as big as my Allen Heath, if not a little bigger. Or whatever the case. This is 48 channels. If you're like me, who got the room to have a console in their studio. This Allen Heath, I'll tell everyone what I paid. I bought this Allen Heath from a church that was getting rid of it for $400. Okay. I got 48 mic pre's, 48 EQ channels, 10 auxiliary sends, 8 bus, and on top of that, 4 matrix out for $400. Even you're not finding these for $400. Most of the time they're 12, 25. The point is, I can get more for my money. Getting a minus 32 or finding one of these Allen Heaths, even if they're $2,500 for a 48 channel or whatever, I'm getting more for my money. I definitely have more EQ control than what's on that SSL. So when I made that video, that was the point. And then everyone started coming, oh, you can't, whatever. And then they was talking about, because I was doing a video next to my Behringer MX8000 Behringer, right? And they was like, oh, that Behringer, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, your Behringer never sounded good. And I've made so many videos where people like, man, I even made a video I even did a video where I was like, what you won't do for love, featuring big cheap Behringer gear. And everyone was like, man, the Behringer sound like that? I'm like, yes, it does. I didn't know it was that. I didn't know it sounded that good, because it's about up here and how you know how to record than it is the console. So I was like, don't let the name fool you. You're not going to get tremendous better sound buying the SSL. Now, was I saying the SSL was a bad piece? No, I was saying it was overpriced for what you're getting, what they're giving you. Don't let the name. You can get more for your money. That's what I was making. So people responded. I said, so I made all the SSL 6, were butthurt. And I'm like, don't get butthurt. That was the point. The point was, I never said it. I would love to have an SSL 6000. And I'm like, and for when I went to the SSL 6000, let's say, for example, I wanted a large format console like my Allen Heath. Let's say for $60,000, I can buy the SSL Origin, or I take $60,000, buy $25,000 used SSL 48 channel, 4,000, right? Used for 25 grand, because that's how cheap they've gotten. I can spend another 20 grand and get it commissioned. That means they're going to pull each module out, recap it, go through each channel, and so forth, and also recap the power supply. Put the power supply in the other room, and on top of that, invest another $5,000 upgraded HVAC system to keep the console, because you're supposed to keep those on. So all again, I spent 50 grand on a console that gives you way more than the Origin does. Because the SSL 4000, you get dynamics, you get their automation computer if the computer isn't bad, because it is dated software. Stuff like that. Was using examples like that to explain. Don't spend $100,000 on a Neve Genesis unless you got $100,000 to spend on a Neve Genesis. And 90% of us don't have $100,000 to spend on anything. I can go out there and find me, like this Allen Heath. I can go find me an Allen Heath 5,000, ML 5,000, whatever, $2,000, $3,000, whatever. Invest in outboard gear, acoustic treatment, and now everything else, cabling, a good patch bay, some outboard gear for 40 grand. And on top of that, redo my room and everything else for 40 grand, and to spend $100,000. Same thing. You can buy probably a Behringer X32 compact for $1,500 instead of spending $6. That was the whole point. I am not knocking the SSL 6. I'm just knocking the price, because I'm not going to buy something because it's got a name on it. It's about practicality in this business. for the home studio user, not the commercial studio user. Most of the commercial studio, they've already got invested millions of dollars in their studio for the commercial studio because they're going to get a bigger return on their investment with clients, especially if you start bringing in big clients. You're going to get a return on investment. Most home studio users are not going to get a return on investment spending $80,000 on a Neve Genesis. They're just not, unless they're getting clients. That's not worth it. But let me see. Okay, and then he said, people are dumb, dude. Keep the videos. Yeah, that's what I said. One person said when they said you're not going to get it, you can't never get a good sound of that out of that Behringer. And I proved the point. Every single time I make videos with that Behringer. I made another video, Behringer and Cakewalk software, and I let people hear it. And they're like, man, that's how the Behringer. Yes, that's how the Behringer sound, because they don't understand that. The MX8, the Behringer has really, that Behringer, what people don't know is that Behringer MX8000 has really good op amps in it. It was built in Germany, not China. It was built in Germany. And they use high-end op amps because at that time, Eli Behringer was trying to compete in the market on that with that console. And it's the same thing. He had to opt to use better. He had to make sure that Behringer, the same console he got sued over with Mackie, he had to use the same setup, just like the Mackie 32.8 that we know. He had to make sure he had the same quality of stuff to compete. That's why it sounds like it sounds. I do my thorough research on this stuff before I do anything. I've been doing this for a long time. So let me see. Okinawa, Japan says it's about the long tail view. Oh, it's about the long tail views over time. The views built over the years and help the next generation. Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah. And like I said, when I was taking those videos down, I really wasn't thinking about that because I didn't realize how YouTube's algorithm works. Sometimes people never see my videos until months later, and it's new to them. But I guess because I made the video and all my immediate subscribers seen the video, I wasn't taking that into context. That's why I regret taking down a lot of videos, especially a lot of the previous videos that I did, especially the teaching videos. So other than that, so I promise I won't do that unless the video unless it's a video I had to take down I had to take down when I made my thoughts about Will Smith punching Chris Rock. That don't need to be on my channel. That's a different format. I don't need videos like that on my channel. That's just not, it doesn't serve my channel. So I had to take that video down. Man said I get to get up early in the morning for a trip to Sweetwater. Have a good night, man. Love your stuff. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for always being loyal to the channel. I'm about to end the video anyway because it's 2 hours. It's well over 2 hours, 2 hours, 17 minutes. So I need to go anyway. I really do appreciate everyone tuning in, but I need to visit Sweetwater one day. So have a good time going up to Indiana. I want to thank everyone that tuned in because it's well over 2 hours. I got to go. I appreciate all of y'all, Okinawa, Japan, Peter, and Martin, and everyone that was writing in, Brian. Thanks to all of you guys and everyone that watched the video, that was tuning in and watched the video. Thanks to all y'all for watching and tuning in. Like I said, I'm gonna have more time to do these live videos, and that way, because I love when people interact. Because that way, I think that's the best way over than just me posting a video then waiting for comments. I think people get a chance to interact, which is good. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate y'all watching the video, and we'll see you on the next live chat. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.